On March 14th at exactly 20:47 in the morning, 12 Iranian ballistic missiles struck Ben Gurion International Airport just outside Tel Aviv. 4 of them tore massive craters up to 15 meters wide across the main runway. 3 more hit directly into the aircraft parking areas where 73 commercial and military planes were sitting on the ground. 2 missiles ruptured the fuel storage tanks, igniting fires that continued burning uncontrollably more than 18 hours later. 2 additional strikes brought down large sections of Terminal 3, while the final missile destroyed the air traffic control tower entirely. 9 people lost their lives, mostly ground crew workers, night shift mechanics, and passengers who had been resting in the terminal before early morning flights. Another 234 were wounded. At this moment, Ben Gurion International Airport is completely non-operational. No flights are arriving and no flights are departing. Every international route to and from Israel has been canceled with no timeline for restoration. Israel's only major connection to the outside world has been eliminated and the entire country is now severed from global trade, travel, and supply chains. Ben Gurion handles more than 20 million passengers every single year. It is the economic heartbeat of Israel. Tourism, revenue, business activity, cargo shipments, medical supply imports, and even military logistics all flow through this single airport. Without it, Israel cannot receive emergency aid, cannot safely evacuate foreign nationals, cannot keep its businesses functioning, and cannot demonstrate to the world that it remains a viable place for investment. Experts are warning that repairs will require a minimum of 6 to 12 months. Throughout that entire period, Israel will face a degree of economic isolation that no battlefield victory can compensate for. How the attack unfolded, we are now at day 15 of this conflict. Since February 28th, Iran has launched more than 50 ballistic missiles targeting military installations, government buildings, and war support infrastructure. But this strike on Ben Gurion Airport operates on an entirely different level. This was not simply about destroying weapons or eliminating soldiers. This was a deliberate, calculated move to sever Israel's connection to the rest of the planet and inflict economic damage that will persist for years beyond any eventual ceasefire. Ben Gurion Airport sits approximately 15 kilometers southeast of Tel Aviv and processes nearly all of Israel's international passenger traffic. It has 3 terminals, with Terminal 3 serving as the primary hub for global flights. 2 runways handle operations. The main runway stretching over 500 meters accommodates all large wide-body jets, while a shorter secondary runway serves smaller regional aircraft. On a typical night, between 50 and 80 aircraft are parked on the ground. On the night of March 13th into the 14th, that figure stood at 73, higher than normal because many airlines had already grounded flights due to the ongoing war, leaving planes sitting idle longer than usual while awaiting passengers and cargo loads. At 2:47 in the morning, Israeli radar detected the launch of 12 ballistic missiles from western Iran. Based on their speed and trajectory, they were identified as Kubar-Shik and 4 variants. Air raid sirens activated across the airport and surrounding neighborhoods. Security personnel scrambled to implement emergency protocols, but there simply was not enough time. The missiles covered the distance in approximately 7 minutes. Iron Dome batteries positioned around the airport activated and fired 31 interceptor missiles. Not a single one succeeded. All 12 incoming missiles struck their targets without exception. The aircraft lost. The destruction of 73 aircraft in a single attack stands as one of the largest aviation disasters in modern history. El Al, Israel's national carrier, had 23 wide-body jets parked at the airport that night, Boeing 77 Dreamliners and 777s, each valued at approximately $300 million. That represents $6.9 billion in losses for El Al alone. But the financial figure understates the true damage. Nearly the airline's entire long-haul fleet was concentrated at Ben Gurion that night. El Al has effectively lost its capacity to operate international routes and is now facing the very real prospect of bankruptcy. Foreign carriers absorbed devastating losses as well. United Airlines had 7 Boeing 787s on the tarmac. Lufthansa had 5 Airbus A350s. Delta had 4 Boeing 787s. British Airways had 3 Airbus A380s. Air France, KLM, Turkish Airlines, and Emirates combined had another 12 aircraft awaiting morning departures or held over from delayed evening flights. When the missiles struck the parking areas, the enormous fuel reserves inside those wide-body jets ignited instantly. Large commercial aircraft carry tens of gallons of jet fuel that burns at temperatures exceeding 1,000 degrees Celsius. Structural metal melted. Interiors were completely incinerated. By the time fire crews arrived on scene, every aircraft was an irretrievable total loss. The Israeli Air Force additionally lost 19 military aircraft stationed in the airport's logistics section, 15 fighters undergoing maintenance, C-130 transport planes, and smaller reconnaissance aircraft. This directly diminishes Israel's capacity to move troops and equipment and reduces the number of available combat aircraft. Tallying the complete losses, El Al's 23 planes at $6.9 billion, foreign carriers' 31 planes at roughly $4 to $5 billion, and the Israeli military's 19 aircraft at another $1 to $2 billion. Total destruction falls between $12 and $15 billion, the largest single event aircraft loss since the September 11th attacks in 2001, when nearly 300 planes were affected across multiple American airports. Why Iron Dome failed? Most observers assume Iron Dome is specifically designed to protect critical national infrastructure like airports. Ben Gurion was indeed guarded by 3 fully operational Iron Dome batteries positioned around its perimeter on the night of the attack. They failed completely. Here is precisely why. According to early IDF damage assessments, the 12 K-bar Shikan 4 missiles approached simultaneously from multiple directions. Each one released a cluster warhead during terminal descent that separated into 10 individual submunitions, effectively converting 12 incoming missiles into 120 distinct targets arriving at the same moment. Iron Dome's radar and fire control systems attempted to track and engage them, but the submunitions were equipped with GPS guidance systems, independently deployable control fins, and executed unpredictable evasive maneuvers at very low altitudes, leaving the defense system almost no reaction window. When 120 separate targets materialize simultaneously, the system is simply overwhelmed beyond its operational capacity. 0 intercepts were achieved. Every missile and every submunition hit exactly where it was directed: runways, terminals, fuel storage, aircraft parking stands, and the control tower. The repair timeline, the scale of destruction is catastrophic, and the recovery timeline reflects that reality. The main runway craters measure 15 meters wide and 5 meters deep. Proper repair requires complete excavation, thorough ground compaction, and specialized reinforced concrete formulated to withstand the weight and repeated stress of heavy commercial aircraft. Runway restoration alone will take 4 to 6 months. Terminal 3 sustained structural damage so severe that demolition and complete reconstruction from the ground up is likely the only viable path forward, a minimum 12 to 18-month project. The 73 burned-out aircraft hulks must be carefully cut apart and removed before any aircraft movement on the ground becomes possible, adding another 2 to 3 months. Jet fuel released from the ruptured storage tanks has contaminated extensive areas of surrounding soil, requiring major environmental remediation work that adds a further 3 to 4 months to the overall timeline. The earliest conceivable reopening date is September 2026. The more realistic projection points toward January 2027. Israel will be without its only international airport for a minimum of 6 months and potentially as long as 10. This is not without historical precedent, though the circumstances are uniquely severe. On July 13, 2006, Israeli aircraft struck Beirut's Rafik Hariri International Airport and closed it for several weeks. The international community condemned it as disproportionate force against civilian infrastructure. 2 decades later, Iran has applied the identical approach to Israel, except the consequences are dramatically more serious because Israel has no alternative international airport. Smaller airfields in Haifa and the Negev cannot accommodate wide-body jets. Israel is now entirely dependent on sea and land routes, both of which are already operating under severe strain. The Strait of Hormuz has been blocked for 15 days. Ships have been struck in the Mediterranean. Land border crossings are slow and prohibitively expensive. The supply chain is fracturing. The economic damage every week. Ben Gurion remains close costs Israel approximately $2 to $3 billion. Lost tourism revenue accounts for $450 million per week. Lost business travel contributes another $200 million weekly. Lost cargo operations represent $1.2 billion per week. When secondary effects are factored in, frightened investors, canceled contracts, businesses relocating operations abroad, the total economic damage could surpass $150 billion if the airport remains closed for a full year. The situation grows darker still. Global aviation insurers have effectively declared Israeli flight operations uninsurable. A single coordinated attack destroying 73 aircraft in one night establishes this as a repeatable risk rather than an isolated freak occurrence. Insurance companies are fundamentally revising their risk models and stating they will not provide coverage for operations at Ben Gurion until Israel can demonstrate reliable protection against ballistic missile attacks, something Iron Dome just conclusively proved it cannot provide. El Al is now facing an insurance claim of between $18 and $22 billion, which would represent the largest aviation insurance claim in history. But insurers are already declining to renew policies for any replacement aircraft operating from Ben Gurion. Foreign carriers, including Lufthansa, United, Delta, and British Airways, are receiving the same message from their underwriters. Coverage will not be extended until the security environment fundamentally changes. This creates a scenario where even after physical repairs are completed, the airport could reopen to entirely empty runways because no airline can afford to operate there. Israel's response 4 hours after the strike. At 6:00 in the morning, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu convened an emergency cabinet session. The option to strike Iran's Imam Khomeini International Airport in direct retaliation was placed before him. He rejected it. Attacking a civilian airport in Iran would result in hundreds of civilian deaths, devastate Israel's international standing, and almost certainly provoke even more intense Iranian strikes against Israeli cities. More fundamentally, it would not address the core problem. Israel still possesses no effective defense against this category of ballistic missile attack on Ben Gurion. Netanyahu told reporters, "We are assessing the damage and will rebuild Ben Gurion stronger than before. We cannot guarantee it will not be hit again, but we are working with our American partners to strengthen defenses." That single sentence communicates everything. He cannot promise it will not happen again. Airlines understand that. Insurers understand that. Passengers understand that. Who chooses to travel through an airport whose own government openly acknowledges it cannot guarantee protection? The bigger picture: 12 missiles. 70, 3 aircraft destroyed. 80, 9 lives lost. Ben Gurion closed indefinitely. $2 to $3 billion in weekly economic hemorrhaging. El Al confronting bankruptcy. Foreign airlines refusing to return. Insurance companies declaring the airport uninsurable. and a prime minister who cannot promise this will not be repeated. Iran achieved a significant strategic victory without deploying a single soldier onto Israeli territory. By eliminating the airport, Iran has crippled the economy, isolated the country internationally, and generated cascading costs that will compound for years. This conflict has moved beyond individual military engagements. It is now a contest over whether Israel can remain economically viable over the long term. Pure military strikes against Iranian military facilities alone cannot answer that question. Iran destroyed 73 aircraft and shut down Israel's only international gateway with 12 coordinated missiles. The response to that kind of economic warfare demands something that goes far beyond bombs and airstrikes.